I mean, definitely curiosity as to how things work has led and I guess flows into so much of what we do today at Nood Co. You know, right down to our concrete mix. And I think we were so reliant initially, like as people are, like when you enter a new industry, you're reliant on information of those that came before you. And it was never malicious, but people can only tell you what they've been taught. And that can often be quite limiting, and they don't mean it to be, but it's all they know.
Yeah.
And unless you push the boundaries a little bit, like if someone says this sets in X amount of time and this is going to reach this strength, like maybe it will, but maybe it doesn't, you know? And
or maybe it did and it doesn't anymore.
Exactly. And like test absolutely everything.
Welcome to Behind the Design, a podcast where we unfold the details behind the designs we know and love and explore how each project comes to life. I am Camilla Ingall, owner of Unfolded, an interior design and styling studio. In this podcast series, we dive into the details with our industry experts, covering topics such as the creative process, latest design trends, and how we, as an industry, work together to meet the brief and overcome challenges. Let the conversation begin. Chris, welcome to Behind the Design.
Thank you so much for having me. It's exciting to be here. They let me out of the factory for a change.
You're allowed
a big wide world.
I love that. So you own one of the most popular suppliers that I personally use, Nood Co. So tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, do you want the short or the long version?
Give me the long.
So I spent many years as a solid plasterer. I started out my, I guess, working life as a tradie and spent many years in that, which is, ultimately the long journey has sort of led me to where we are today.
Wow.
And
was that from school, like straight out of school into?
I tried, I was at uni for a little while. I did an e-commerce degree for about 6 months, and it just, which was a great time in the world to be doing that, but it just didn't grab me. And I ended up doing an apprenticeship. I started a little later than some. I was probably about 19. And, you know, back in the day, $5 an hour, like it was a commitment to sort of do a trade. Luckily, I had family support at the time, so it was like just knuckle down and get it done. But when I really think back, sort of on the journey of how I got to where I am today, there's tiny little moments that stand out, like tiny little decisions that just turned everything in one particular direction that now seem this super clear path. I mean, if you'd asked me back then if I would ever see myself, you know, running a design company that makes beautiful concrete products, it was not even on my mind at all. I think from an early age for me, much to Dad's dismay, I used to rip everything apart. So for me in the early years, it wasn't creation. It was like, I want to see what's inside.
A curious nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the process of ripping things apart, that kind of led me to wanting to put things back together, wanting to build things, wanting to work with my hands. I think me as a teenager, I definitely would have probably picked myself working somewhere in IT or some professional fields. And having spent that little bit of time at uni early on, I realised I wanted to work with my hands. Like I'd been doing some labouring work for some friends, and it was so much more enjoyable. Like I got to learn so much, not only about the trade, but I think those kind of hands-on skills really gives you, and just the environment on site, like it pushes you, gives you a boost in life, and it lets you know what are the expectations in the workforce. And just the environment was great. The people I worked with are fantastic. And I think for me, there was definitely a pivotal time when I decided I'm actually going to do this and take on this apprenticeship. And that definitely turned the corner for me from thinking that I was going to end up probably in something white collar to realizing I need to be doing something with my hands. I need to be building or creating.
Creating.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I love hearing how people come from, a law degree to building something. It's such a nice transition because I imagine when you've done e-commerce to then doing something that's, as you say, with your hands, handcrafted in such a creative zone, they're so polar opposite.
Complete opposites.
But does the e-com now help you a little bit? Because
it's moved so far past anything that was on my radar back then. Yes. I mean, e-com and just connecting with people, even just for information over the internet, like being able to provide our customers, spec sheets and images. And I mean, e-com in general for us is so critical, but it is so far beyond anything that
it is
back
and
then.
It's ever evolving, isn't it? Like it's always getting better and bigger and more, and so much you can do with it.
And look, I want to know how to do everything, and there's definitely part of me that an internal battle. It's wanting to know about that, wanting to learn how to do it, and then realizing I've got someone in my team that is 10 times better at this than me, and it's so even getting myself like stay in my lane, empower your team.
Delegate.
Yeah, delegate. But it gives me the opportunity to learn. So I get to learn from them as I go, but removing the pressure to think that, you can still maintain that curiosity for what's going on or why is it working or how does it work without actually having to get in there and do it all yourself. So
you have, it's 8 years now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So you've transitioned into the umbrella overseeing absolutely everything as opposed to being in it?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm still there about between 5 and 6 every day. I do the first half of the day with the guys in the factory, guys and girls, shall I say, in the factory. I think, and don't get me wrong, there's many hats that I wear, but if you're too detached from what's going on, it can really go off track, in my opinion. So spending quality time with the team, like I will go and almost take a labouring position for the team out the back. Like I will sweep up, restock their workstations, help them if they need to prepare something. And, by nature, I just want to get in there and do everything. But I think one of the biggest successes and the things I'm most proud of is our team, how empowered they are, how good they are at their jobs, and being able to spend some quality time with them every day. Like, I'm on your side, we're here, we're all in this together, sort of united.
We are a team.
Yeah. And, there's plenty to do in every area of the business. But I think the beauty about us still being a small company, which it's often a misconception. I bump into people and they're like, oh, you guys are huge, or you guys are manufactured overseas, or they don't realise that we're a small little business operating out of Perth, of all places, just tucked away. One of the best lifestyle choices I've made. They love it over there. But they don't realise, like, there's only 15 of us in our whole team.
It's deceptive, isn't it?
So deceptive.
Yeah.
And I think credit to Matt and the marketing team over the years for really doing such a great job that everyone thinks that,
Huge.
that we're bigger than we are. And I definitely take that as a compliment. But we're a small team. Everything's handcrafted. Like, everything's made in Australia. People in WA, they turn up and they're like, you guys make everything here. Like, they live down the road and they don't even realise that. So, it's good. It's good to be able to have a team of that size because you really got your finger on the pulse, and I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but you feel what's going on all the time, and you're part of that process and so connected to it that I think that really drives the result.
Yeah. And it's so, just to go back, I found it really interesting hearing you say pull things apart. So as a child, I had those Spot books. Remember Spot, the dog?
Yeah.
And my mum would say that, you open the Spot book and there's that little flap that you open and you see what Spot's up to. Apparently I just tore the flaps off all of those pages.
Mum would not have been happy.
And she's like, why? And I'm like, I just want to know what's behind it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a creative thing.
I think
I don't know. We've got this curious nature.
I think it is. And I mean, Dad, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. Dad had a whole box full of 8 tracks, like, you know, preceding cassette tapes.
Oh, of course.
And I knew that they made music, but I didn't understand how, because I was a kid, I was tiny.
Yeah.
And he had a whole box. There must have been 20, maybe more. I ripped every one of them open with a screwdriver because I knew one of them had the music inside it. Funny, they all had tape.
That is so funny.
But I was just determined to work out how the music was coming out of this tiny little device. So yeah, I appreciate still being around after doing stuff like that.
Didn't get yourself into too much trouble.
Yeah, well, I probably did, but I mean, definitely curiosity as to how things work has led and I guess flows into so much of what we do today at Nood Co. Right down to our concrete mix. Like we developed a custom design mix many years ago. It was always something I was passionate about and wanted to do, like not having a chemistry background. I mean, we really are talking, on a molecular level, like you need to know how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And
otherwise, like, how is it going to hold as a basin, as a fitting that you can even sell as well?
The mix itself plays right into it's just a critical part of the mat. It's like baking, like everything is so critical.
Not too much baking powder, a little bit of salt,
a little bit of sprinkle that throws everything.
Half an egg.
Yeah. And I think we were so reliant initially, like as people are, like when you enter a new industry, you're reliant on information of those that came before you. And it was never malicious, but people can only tell you what they've been taught. And
from their experience.
And that can often be quite limiting, and they don't mean it to be, but it's all they know.
Yeah.
And unless you push the boundaries a little bit, like if someone says this sets...
Ask questions.
Yeah, this sets in X amount of time and this is going to reach this strength. Like maybe it will, but maybe it doesn't, And
or maybe it did and it doesn't anymore.
Exactly. And like test absolutely everything. Like push the boundaries, do that in-house. Like you want to make sure that the product, like we wanted to make sure the product we're delivering was superior, but we also had a set of criteria from a manufacturing perspective of how that had to work. And
like a process? Was there like, did you have to build, like a process manual?
Critical. Yeah, the process and the material. I think once upon a time I wished things weren't as interconnected as they are, because it's easier to look at a bunch of small things and think, I'll just fix this or I'll just fix that. But it's so tied in, the process, the material, like everything right down to everything that's creating that experience. Because on one hand, you're delivering a product, but really, I mean, I think for us, the way we view it is delivering an experience. And it might sound a bit cheesy, but you're really entering a relationship with the customer when you're selling them a chocolate bar or something that, hey, they love it, but it's gone.
It's a product.
I think when you're something like a basin that's so central to a bathroom, which for a lot of people has different meaning in their own home. Like, but for me, it's a space where I can be alone. It's a space where I'm calm. I'll have a shower. I'll relax. So to have such a pivotal...
Like a retreat kind of space.
Absolutely, yeah. And to have such a pivotal role in that room, I think carries a degree of responsibility. You can make something stunning, but if it's late, or if your customer service was terrible, or there's so many more things, when they look at that every morning when they brush their teeth, are they going to remember, the delivery company?
The experience they had.
Yeah, like how does that look? And that turns up the pressure. Turns up the pressure.
And you mentioned when we spoke last, we were talking about client feedback and how important that is, and how hard it can be to hear sometimes when it's not that great.
Yes. Yeah.
However, it's important because we're all growing. We're all trying to just be better, whether it's, my service or your product, and or us collaborating as an entity as well. But you mentioned how you had some feedback and it was interesting how you took it and how you wanted to do better from it, even though it was hard to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, with taking over the business, one of the first things I did was reach out to a lot of our key partners, a lot of our key stores.
Can I ask who these key stores and partners are?
You'll have a good list of them on our website.
Okay,
yeah, great. We're working really hard at the moment with some key partners to elevate the experience.
And this is where you can buy Nood in store?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And like so many of our partner stores work so closely with architects and designers on their side as well. So it's, reaching out to them and like, what are we doing? What could we be doing better? And you can't ask that question if you don't want to hear the answer. Because if you've got the right relationships, they're going to tell you exactly what they need or exactly where you're missing. Like we had
and it's just asking. Sometimes people don't ask because they don't want to know. They just keep going.
I think the surprise was people were just like, oh, what? They're not used to being asked.
Like, you want to know?
Yeah. And thankfully we had such fantastic feedback about the product, the quality. But one of our suppliers said, like, your tracking system, email system, it sucks. That was like, well, maybe they said something else, but it was
a bit more polite.
Yeah, I've made it a bit more PC.
You took it as it sucks.
Yeah, I took it as it sucks. And they explained why. They said, look, you're delivering a high value product. It takes some time to make, so our lead time can vary anywhere from sort of 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the product. They're like, we want to be kept in the loop a little bit more along that journey. Like, when has it been poured? When has it been sealed? We really want to buy into that handmade process that's going on over there because we can't see that. So for us, we're living that day to day.
Yeah.
We're taking that product from concept all the way to packaging, sending that to the customer.
And you're in the loop.
And we're in the loop.
Yeah.
They're not as in the loop as they could be.
And do they then want to give that information to their customers, or are they more just curious on what's actually going on, do you think?
So, look, some people do and some people don't. It's the balance between not pestering people too much. And if we're emailing you every day.
It's a lot of comms.
Yeah, you're going to start ignoring them. So, one thing.
Or you won't know how to decipher, is this a blog?
Yeah.
Or is this information that I need for my order? Or, it becomes too much of the same thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so that's led us to a point of, creating almost focus groups, if you will, with our all of our customers through all our different sales channels and sitting down and finding out, like, how do you want to be notified? Like, how much is too much? And it's amazing, like, just from that question of what could we be doing better, one thing I found fascinating was, you would get a little bit of a response, but then sometimes I got a call the next day. It's, hey, I was just thinking about what you asked me yesterday, and here's some things we'd love to see from you in the future.
Wow. So
it's amazing what kind of doors it can unlock, just creating a deeper connection with those customers, those resellers.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about, when I ask for client reviews and things like that, and then sometimes you'll be really surprised with what they write.
Yeah.
You didn't realise, in a good way.
Yeah.
And over the moon with your service and key things that they experience with you that you're thinking, oh, that's just what I do daily, but you really liked that.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, you didn't expect it to be the tracking because your product's perfect.
Yeah.
But it was the tracking.
It was.
It's like, okay.
You need a little reminder sometime. Like, if you get too detached or too removed from the process.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm thankful that we spend most of our energy on the creating beautiful quality products. But, there's nothing wrong with a little reminder, like, here's,
keeps you in check.
It does. And it's important.
And as an owner, it's important.
It's so important. Like, if you're too detached from that process, if I'm living on some island, emailing once a week saying, how goes it there? You're too detached. You're never going to connect with your customers. And ultimately, you're not going to be able to deliver a product. You're not going to be able to deliver value or the service. And like our team, I expect a lot from them, especially in areas of communication. Like, they've got to be on board with the vision, and they have to be able to communicate with each other. And if you can get those few things lined up, everything else lines up. Like, you don't have to run around and get stressed out that certain things aren't going to happen, because you've got a team of people that are so committed to delivering that experience for the customer. There's no like laying in bed at night wondering, what's going to go wrong tomorrow.
Wonder what that person's thinking.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've personally found, I won't say challenging, it's probably too heavy a word, but I've tried to remain curious, is one, obviously asking for the feedback, but even just within a client brief or project timeline, which, as you know, some of residential builds can be like 2 years long and things like that.
Stretch.
So I might spec, 10 of your basins for 2 projects, and then I won't call you for 12 months.
Yeah.
I don't need them delivered, but they've been on the schedule for 12 months.
Yeah.
But all the correspondence that happens in between, like even just little follow-ups from suppliers, hey, just checking if the quote's still going ahead, that's just such a nice feeling.
It really is.
Because it's just, again, it's just that team approach. Everybody's trying to make this job beautiful. And our suppliers, the reason I choose certain suppliers and source from certain suppliers is because of what you're saying now. You're committed to communicating. Your team is committed to communicating. So as a designer, I'm like, well, why would I not? I'm then going to sell your concept to my clients so they want to buy them, because I know I'm going to get the whole package. So there's so many elements to all of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think like designers and architects for us are such a critical part of communicating. One thing I learned,
especially with lead times and deadlines and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest ones for us is we're creating a handcrafted product. Not every product is identical. Like you've got,
which is beautiful.
It is, absolutely, but it's not for everyone. And part of communicating that message, making sure we're connecting with the right customers, is architects and designers that are sitting there. They know their customers intimately, and they know whether they want something beautiful, organic, handmade, or whether they want
with
something
a point of difference.
Yeah, or maybe they don't, and either way is fine, but we're definitely not for everyone. And
you're not off the shelf either.
No. Definitely not. And like our ability to communicate that to our customers and manage expectations is strengthened so deeply by the architects and designers that are in that mix.
And what do you think off the back of that? Like, I think it takes a lot of confidence to own your niche.
Yeah.
Like for you to say, we push that message so that everybody knows where we stand, what we deliver on, no cookie cutter over here. That can be scary when you first start, because it's so unique.
Definitely.
That there's a certain demographic that will go, no, I'm okay. I want certainty around how my basin's going to look. I want it to look exactly like the website. I have clients like that all the time. Let's be honest.
And it's a bit of a trap.
Yeah. Or we can go the other way, which is obviously let's say your community and your buyer know what they're going to get in terms of, oh, I'm super excited to get that beautiful mushroom colour that I know is in your range because it's so unique. And I'm going to have 2 basins side by side and they both will be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I want that.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's like an investment.
Yeah. And it's, I think the beauty for us is that more and more people, I think these days, and I hate throwing the term trends out there, but more and more people these days are connecting with organic handmade products, and that's what we do. So I think the way that we're experiencing like the demand for our products, and especially the new Conscious range, they're way more organic and they're just stunning, and people are leaning right into that. So
what is the difference with the Conscious range then?
So the Conscious range we released just over 12 months ago, I think, and we were bouncing around ideas with CEO, our socials manager, who also does ceramics, and she was just doing.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, her stuff's amazing. She just makes the cutest little things and does little workshops for kids and everything. So, we were just talking around ideas, and she was just doing some wheel work, and you're just watching these kind of finger lines. And
is that like pottery class vibe?
Yeah, pottery class.
Okay.
Vibe, yeah, and.
Maybe we can add a little link in the show notes about that process. That could be really
absolutely
cool.
yeah. We've got plenty of sort of photos around that process, and it just stood out, like, how do we get that and use concrete as our medium and get that same effect, like that same emotion that I'm getting looking at her doing that wheel work. How do we translate that into a basin? And mill basin, that was our first conscious, and it's been like wildly successful. I mean, I've got 2 of them in my house. First thing I see when I wake up in the morning.
So good. What colour?
Mine are mushroom.
Okay, yeah, I do love the mushroom.
Yeah, I just couldn't go past it. I mean, for me, it sets my day off to a good start. And I think, like, I had to really rack my brain before I came in today. Like, why do we do what we do? Like, what is that for me?
The why is the biggest thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I have to be completely honest. Like, I hadn't given it a great deal of thought. Like.
This is your prompt.
It is. And I was like, why am I doing this? It's that feeling that I get when I walk in the morning and I'm sort of rubbing the sleep out of my eyes and these 2 mill basins are sitting there and I just smile a little bit and I don't dwell on it, but I just go about my day.
It's a moment.
And that moment for me, I want to share that moment with as many people as possible. The right people, like people that are looking for
have them feel what you feel.
Yeah, have them feel what I feel. And it goes, I think for us, it's so much deeper than just that product design. Like, why I think of us as a design company first and a product company second is because of that experience, because we're all working on delivering within our team our own little part to contribute to that customer experience, so that when someone looks at their basins in the morning, they smile. They don't smile and then think, I remember it rocking up in 2 pieces because the delivery guy threw it off the truck.
Yeah, oh gosh, don't. I've got PTSD. Yeah. This is like Temple Webster vibes for me. Every client's like, I'll just get it from Temple Webster. I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah, look.
I don't mind standing with you, but that's as far as it goes because they just throw them. Mirrors are shattered.
Yeah, right.
Maybe not basins so much, but the mirrors.
Yeah, look, at transport, I really do feel for everyone when it comes to logistics because that's a tricky one, like scaling over the years and trying to get that right.
In terms of finding the right courier, or do they what was the challenge there?
That's part of it. And then sometimes you realise that it might be hard to connect with the right courier, so you need to start working backwards. Like, what does my packaging need to be so that I can send it with anyone?
Right.
And that was
bubble wrap box.
Yeah, that was where we ended up.
How many layers?
Yeah, and what we wanted
wrap it in concrete.
Yeah, you just get a block of concrete and a chisel.
Then nothing shatters.
Yeah, and you just got to carve it out yourself. Yeah, performance art.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you're charging for that. But.
Yeah, that's the next podcast. That's all we're doing.
Exactly.
It just was working back from there. It was like, well, it needs to be environmentally friendly. Like polystyrene.
Thank you.
Polystyrene works quite well as far as getting something there, but there's not enough recycling facilities that can deal with it. So we looked outside of that and we ended up with this air bubble. It's made of plastic that can be recycled, and most of that is air, right? So you pop it at the other end, you throw it in the recycle bin, and our products travel safely.
And so that's not prone to popping in transit? Or is it pretty good?
If you throw it out of a window, it pops sometimes.
Okay. But in general? In
general. Yeah. Look, there are transport accidents, and I think that's just part of life sometimes.
Yeah, you got to live in a bit of the grey, room for error. Yeah.
And look, in the rare instance that happens, that's fully covered. Like, we just send another one out. Like, that's part and parcel of that service.
Under warranty and all that jazz.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing we want is someone worrying about, if it doesn't make it here, what do I do? But those air bubbles, they've been absolutely fantastic for us. It allowed us to have an environmentally sustainable solution and still get the product there.
And does that, correct me if I'm wrong, does that then complement your natural product offering?
It aims to.
It wouldn't make sense, would it, to be wrapped in bubble wrap? No. It kind of doesn't align with your message
No, it
of
doesn't.
mood.
And there is a balance somewhere in the middle, because if I send it in something completely organic and it doesn't make it there, I'm going to have to make you another one. And then if you look at the embodied energy of that process, well, I haven't been environmentally responsible because I haven't sent it in a way that's going to get there.
And does that become landfill? Like it's...
Yeah. Well, all our, like we've got an extremely high quality control process. So in the event that something gets flagged partway through the process, we've got a concrete recycling place that it goes to.
Can you reuse concrete?
We don't.
No.
The reason we don't reuse it in-house is we've got an extremely high quality control standard, and running it and crushing it through machines, I think it just leads... There's too much potential. It could be contaminated and then go back into someone's mix.
Got it.
So we make sure we send it to a recycling facility. It's typically used for civil construction. So it gets 100% recycled, but it doesn't meet the quality standards to go back into our products.
Well, that's good. Like it's...
Yeah.
And this is a classic case of behind the design, right? These are all the things that people go, oh, I'm just going to pick my basin colour and it's delivered. Like, look at what goes on.
Yeah, there's
so many layers.
Such a process.
Yeah. Do you enjoy it?
I do. I mean, I don't think...
You sound very passionate about what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it is the absolute hardest, most challenging and most rewarding thing I've ever done, just wrapped up into a ball. It keeps me going. Like, I don't think I could get up every morning and head down to the factory at 6 a.m. and spend all day with the team if it wasn't in my heart. Yeah. And if it's not in mine, it's not in theirs, because it all flows right down. So I think having a passion for what you're doing, it's a tricky one because you balance that with burnout as well, which can often happen if you're slightly too passionate about what you're doing.
I literally had this conversation with another podcast guest. He's a landscape designer, and we just bounced that fine line between burnout and passion, because you can call it passion, because he was saying, passion for him and I were both agreeing keeps you up till midnight, for me doing mood boards and for him designing plants.
Yeah.
And for you it might be a new colour range, for example, or how the concrete's going to fit in this design. Where does the waste go? All those things that matter. Is it how far do we go with the passion versus the burnout? And then we were discussing if we'd experienced it, and I personally have only last year. Have you experienced burnout?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I've almost come full circle. When I was younger, I think I learned through the trade just high level of work ethic, resilience started to form. And from that, I think I overworked for years, like decades. And
sometimes you're a bit on autopilot at that age, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then if I look back at what the motive, like why was I working so hard then? Probably because I was a bit lost. Probably because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Or,
it's like a hamster on the wheel.
Yeah. So, looking back on that, definitely burnout, definitely overworking, definitely the wrong drivers. And that led into a period of probably pulling back a little bit, but pulling back out of guilt, because I felt like...
What age was this, sorry? Like mid-20s or...?
Yeah, I would say right from mid-20s up until...
Yesterday.
up until tomorrow. Definitely mid-20s was just blindly working. And, I had friends and they'd travel to Europe, and I'm running my own solid plastering business. Mm-hmm. And they get back and they're like, I had the best time. And I'm like, I really should have done that. But I've got jobs, I've got clients, I've got commitments. So
different priorities.
Yeah, different priorities. But there was definitely a large period of time in which I ignored people close to me and looking after myself, like self-care wasn't really on the table for me back then. And that kind of flows into every area of your life. And I think that probably mid-30s, that had flown back into a bit of a cycle of guilt, like feeling guilty for working too much, so then trying to pare back. And then from there, I think it's come back right
Which
around.
again is sort of that wrong driver, isn't it?
It is. It's
because
the wrong driver.
Guilt's not the best driver for anything.
Swinging literally from one polar opposite to the other.
Like pendulum swing. They say to find that middle swing where you're just doing this, not this.
Yeah. And I look, for me, and who knows, I might look back on this in 10 years and say I had it wrong, but I've never felt more aligned between, and I think just ticking the heart boxes, like being able to get there in the morning and love what I do. There is a passion there. I don't walk around all day. I'm not stressed and full of anxiety about what I'm doing.
Not feeling lost.
I'm not feeling lost. I'm feeling so settled with those around me at work and those outside of work. And I really show up better for everyone else if my heart boxes are ticked and if I'm passionate about something. Being able to work on something amazing with a group of people, for me, is everything. And I never realized that. You know, that penny drops for me more and more every day. Like I get there and I kind of look around and everyone's doing their thing. And
reality check, isn't it?
Yeah, and you just like, I'm watching them communicate and I'm watching, some of the girls in the office go out the back and have a chat with the team and people coming in the other way and saying, oh, hey, this job, I just wanted to ask some questions and we want to make sure we get this thing right. And like, I'm just like, wow, like, is this real? And I don't think I realized how much it was fulfilling me. And I dare say I'm in the middle now, but who knows?
Yeah, it's made me think, hearing you speak, it sounds so, like, I love the word alignment. I think it's huge. I know it's, a little bit, what's the word? Like, there's a lot of people saying it at the moment, but I think if you're in true alignment, the right things will keep coming in. And it sounds when you say, what was your wording? Heartfelt? No, where your heart's in it. Yeah. It's kind of like that when your soul's in it too, and that can be quite embodying. Absolutely. Embodying, I should say. And it's kind of made me think, like, it reminds me of the fact that even just hearing you say this, I'm like, wow, yeah, my team shows up for me every day. Yeah. They're showing up for Unfolded. Yeah. They're wanting Unfolded to be successful. This is my baby that they're supporting. Like, that's pretty cool.
It's so cool.
We get so busy in, for me, scheduling basins. Oh, yeah. And, timber finishes and all the things.
So many moving parts for you.
Yeah, that's it. So it's like, you get so caught up in like the scheduling and the planning and everything, and then the job gets done, you photograph and it's beautiful, then you're on to the next one, and then it's just go, and it's like, hang on a minute. Like you say, 6 a.m, meeting everybody, seeing the team, they're all showing up for your, like, project, your what's the word? Your product, let's say. It's pretty special.
It is. And if you can't enjoy that, you're going to miss out on the whole thing. Yeah. If it's focused on this like distant end goal, not only is that going to shift, but you're going to have your blinders on, which I've done so many times over the years. You've got your blinders on and you're like, we're trying to get here. We're trying to do this thing. We've got this coming up. We've got a deadline. And if you don't take any enjoyment from the process or the people around you, you've missed the whole thing. Because all of a sudden you're at the end of the road, you're in your deathbed and you're looking around and you're thinking, like, what was it all for? And I think what we're doing now, for me...
Which is the why.
Which is
a little bit coming back to that,
100%,
Yeah. So, for you now, you were saying...
Yeah, like, I want to look back on what we've done here and be proud of what we've done. I want to feel as proud in 30, 40 years as I do now about what we're doing. And I think it's... like, how far out are you looking? Like, I know when we started, sometimes, especially in new business, like, you've only got a certain amount of runway. So you might not be necessarily thinking, well, we're going to be around in 20 years and making decisions based on that. You're like, we better get some sales or we're not going to be around in 2 months, kind of thing. And
8-week forecasting.
Literally, I know. And if you're making decisions from, I guess, a short-sightedness, which is sometimes necessary at the time. It's like, we put everything we had into, getting NoodCo going, and it was just Matt and I for years. And it was two of us. We had a little desk up near the front door when we went from a...
I love these stories.
Yeah, we went from a tiny little garage. Like the first, I guess the conversations that led into Nood were sitting around. I just moved to Perth. I was living with Matt and Kim, and we were sitting around the dinner table. Kim and I are having a laugh and a beer, and Matt comes running in from the other room. They're like mid-reno, so we're living in reno at that stage. Like half the house was sort of knocked down, and there was, as many people can relate.
Yeah.
And he's come running in with a laptop, and there's a photo of this big, beautiful ceramic sink. And it was somewhere in the Netherlands, or it was very far away and very expensive, very beautiful. And he's like, I would love something like this for the house. But mate, like, can you imagine that in concrete? And I was like, I'll just make it. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, how hard can it be? And that literally all started from that moment. Wow. And I think within 2 weeks, I'd ordered some silicone, and we made a tiny little tea light candle. And we're sitting around the dinner table with this concrete tea light candle. The three of us are just looking at it like in utter amazement. Like I would walk past it now and I wouldn't even notice. But at the time it was
a masterpiece.
It was a masterpiece. And I think it showed us we can use concrete with form and colour, and we can create anything we want. Like this is endless. This isn't industrial design fad or this is
a very timeless product.
It's a timeless product.
And is the wording evergreen, where it can constantly move and change and evolve, your product, right? Like you could do it can go down so many avenues.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool to know that you've got a product that there's things you haven't even done yet that you don't know about.
Much. And some of it we have, and I just can't tell you all about it yet.
Oh, okay. Next month.
Yeah, next month. There's so much coming up, and I will absolutely get my ass kicked from my team if I say too much.
Okay.
Now. But getting that balance right is really important as well, because our philosophy early on was like, oh, let's just do it. Let's just get it done. And we would make new products, and we made a whole furniture range. And we had, I think at the time we had 40 different pieces of furniture. And the whole...
And this was after the tea light?
This was after the tea light.
Okay.
So I've skipped ahead a little bit.
Yeah. What happened between the tea light and the furniture?
So after the tea light, we realised that, I think we knew in that moment that there was something here. And we were working, I think we were out in Matt's driveway. So we had a carport. So it was like semi-enclosed.
Yeah.
But
standing on concrete.
We literally were standing on concrete. There's building materials everywhere because it was mid-reno. And we're like, well, we're going to make this trough sink, which was our first ever product. And at that time, it wasn't for public consumption. It was for Matt and Kim's house. And I think we realised after a few weeks... You've got weather, like we cannot do this in a carport, or like not consistently.
We need a proper space.
Yeah. And so our idea of a proper space was loading Matt's ute with every tool we had, a few bags of material, and we started driving to his sister's house. He gives her a call and he says, hey, Jodie, I want to hire your garage. And she's like, oh, well, yeah, sure, let's chat about it later. And he's like, no, let's chat about this now.
We're on our way.
Well, he didn't tell her yet. So he's finally convinced her that this is a great idea. And she's a little bit reluctant. She's like, Matt, like...
In the middle of an email?
Yeah. Well, she was cutting hair at the time. So she's in the middle of...
The hairdresser? She's a hairdresser.
She's a hairdresser.
Oh,
she's in the middle of cutting someone's hair. She's answered Matt's call. And he's like, we need your garage, please. We'll look after it. She's, I suppose so. Like, when is this going to happen? And he's like, I'll be at your house in 5 minutes. And we rolled into the driveway, and she's just got her hands on her cheeks, and she's shaking her head, and she's like, I don't know what I've got myself into. And I think for the first...
Did I say yes to this?
Yeah. Well, it was too late. Like, we were there, and she was like, all right, get on with the boys. And we put plastic all over the walls so we could keep the garage nice and clean. It looked a little bit Dexter-esque at the time.
Oh, yeah, inspiring.
Yeah, and we put all our equipment in there, and we started making things, and we did all our prototyping. And I remember the first few molds, like I'd make this master shape, and we'd pour silicone over it, and it would take weeks and weeks to get these initial shapes, using all the solid plastering skills that I'd learned over the years running molds and
So all that experience sort of came back around.
Yeah, it just literally
See how it all happens for a reason?
And I was like, I knew this was for something.
Yeah.
And I remember the first mould we made for this huge trough sink, I'd inadvertently dropped a bit of debris in there when I'm pouring the silicone, and we'd ordered just enough to make this thing, and it was expensive.
No.
And I peeled it out the next day, straight in the bin. Like, it was the most shattering thing that could have happened at that time. And
so disappointing.
Yeah.
Such a small error too.
Small error. Like, it was just, we're working in this cluttered little garage and everything else went perfectly. Like, it was absolutely perfect. And then I just dropped, something must have dropped in there. And it's just ruined this mold. So for us at the time, it was just shattering. Like, are we, like, sometimes it's like, is this a sign we're not on the right track?
Yeah. Is this a detour?
Yeah. And I think there was a level of resilience that was beginning to form, which wasn't natural for me. Like, throughout my years on site, like, you learn a lot and you really understand hard work and getting involved.
100%.
There's levels of setbacks that you're just not ready for yet. And I think that really put a dampener on it for us. And anyway, back to the drawing board, so I'm trying to justify to Matt, I'm like, I know I can do this.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we're going to have to buy a whole nother lot of silicone. Like, that was expensive. And back to the drawing board, got it done. And then we built a range of 40 furniture pieces, I think, in this garage. And it was...
Was it always called Nood?
It was. At that stage, it was just called Nood, because we were like, we need a name for this.
Yeah.
And we wanted something...
That's Nood Co.
Nood Co, yeah. So we wanted something curvy, something that was really honouring the kind of raw concrete.
It's organic feeling, yeah. And it's very natural. The curves of the pieces are very natural and organic. And
so it was a cute little play on words that we still have a bit of a laugh about. And
I called it Nood for ages. I don't know if I told you this. Everyone's like, why do you think it's Nood? I'm like, is it not Nood? Like, industry talk. Like, if I go to like events and stuff, they're like, it's definitely Nood. And we just stand there over wine like, which one is it?
Most of our American customers, Nood. Nood, yeah.
Because I sound American.
Yeah, they just haven't quite grasped the functions just yet. But it's, we always, like, and we still get lots of jokes all the time. We also get tagged in random products. We got tagged in some dog food the other day that was not dog food or cat food or something.
Yeah, some weird stuff might come up.
There's a few things, so we try and keep...
You can approve tags, right?
Yeah. CEO that's in charge of our social, she's like, she knows what to let through.
Yeah. She's like, allow, don't allow, unfollow.
Like, that one's for the bin.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was the start of it for us. And it hit the point, like, we were literally falling over ourselves in this garage. And we knew we needed a bigger space. And this factory came up for rent. And it was...
Where was all this at this point?
This was...
Suburb-wise?
Suburb-wise, Perth.
It was, yeah.
It was in Perth, Osborne Park. So it
hasn't left Perth. It's from day one.
We're still in the same factory. Okay. Somehow we are still in the same factory. Okay. I mean, we're out of space, but...
Needing expansion.
We definitely... Like, when we first moved in there was so much space. We had a plywood table that Matt used to write his little notes on up the front near the door, and we were making, making lots of cafe tables at the time, right down the other end of the factory, and it seemed like an eternity. Like, if you left your phone at the other side of the factory, you were like, oh, God.
Do I bother? How much do I need it?
Yeah, it was literally like that, and now it's like, where do we get more space from?
Yeah.
But it really taught us to be efficient. We had to decide... what do we need in here to be able to create? Like, what's critical and what's not? And, that was a very important part of it for us, because you end up not doing things that don't make sense. And for us, after a few years, the furniture just didn't make sense. Being on the West Coast enables us to send our basins Australia-wide and internationally, and we get great rates and they travel safely. It's honestly, it's a lifestyle choice to be there, but it works so well as far as transport. Like, people think, oh, you guys are so far away.
These days, though, like,
it's just a couple of days. And we get great rates coming out of WA, but when we were doing the furniture, like we're sending massive concrete dining tables and...
Oh, the weight.
Yeah, it was a lot of weight. It required so much space.
There's no assembly on site.
No. We sent a table to Sydney and the truck driver couldn't get down the alleyway. So he's walked down to the house and he said to the lady, I've got your table, 200 kilo table. It's just down the end of the alley. And she's like, what do you want me to do about that? So we've had to find a solution. Wow. And it was just not...
Because even like one-man band couriers wouldn't be able to...
No, they wouldn't. They couldn't live.
What did they think they were going to do?
Yeah, so for us, it was like, this isn't delivering the kind of experience we want for people. And yeah, we really dialed in on the basins and now bathtubs. And there's definitely some things in the works that not everyone might expect from us. The exciting things coming up in the next 12 months, but we've learnt to be so considered with what we do. Like, can we deliver the experience we want with this product? Does this product make sense for people? Is it complementary to what we're already doing? So will there be like a level of familiarity for your customers, right? Because sometimes if it's too different, it can put people a bit like, what are they doing? What's going on? Absolutely.
I thought this is what they did and I trusted this. It can be quite interesting how people can get quite, what's the word? Not rattled, but a bit like...
Yeah, they get off board.
Yeah, off board. Like I thought it was this and I expected this, so why are we rerouting?
Yeah, and I think when you try and take, like initially, sometimes you take all this stuff on and you're like, I need to work all this out for myself, but you don't. Like we've got industry partners, we've got designers, we've got architects, so now we've got all these people that we've worked with in the past and we can use them as a sounding board. Hey, we want to do this thing. Like, are we crazy? Do you guys like the idea? Do you hate the idea? Do you want to offer any feedback? So we've got trusted people that we reach out to.
Little check-ins, yeah. It kind of keeps you aligned to that
Absolutely,
path.
yeah.
And confident in the next decision.
So confident. Yeah. And I mean, we always know, like, when we make things and design things, it's things that we would love. So that's where the process starts.
And if it makes sense for you, then
if it makes sense.
Your loyal database.
Yeah, it generally does. Like, there's not too many misses from a product perspective. I think over the years, like, the designs have progressed in such a perfect direction for us. We've ticked so many boxes. We've been part of so many amazing projects, and what we're leaning into at the moment in terms of more textures, more organic, more muted colours. It's aligned with where we want to go, and it's aligned with the way people are designing at the moment, which is a perfect spot.
Yeah, it's a really good place to be. It sounds like you guys are you are very aligned with the business, but also your team sounds very aligned. I've always wanted to know, what inspires your colour range?
Simple nature.
Nature.
Yeah, Australian landscape. I mean, cool. It's first and foremost, if you look at our colour range, it just, with that knowledge, it pops out at you straight away. And I think that's really played into our success, and it's especially with the overseas, like with the American market.
Yeah. So what's the plan with that? That does exist now, doesn't
absolutely,
it? And then, you're wanting to expand on that.
Yeah, we've, I think a total of 39 countries we've sold to, which is mind-blowing. Like,
it's just huge.
Pinch yourself kind of moment.
Yeah.
And the majority of that.
Hit the pillow at night and remind yourself of that.
Every now I log in and I check, and I'm like, I'm just going to check those numbers again. Like, is that right?
Do we screenshot this for later?
I know. There's been a bit of that. It's like, guess what? We just got another country.
Totally.
But it's
surreal.
Yeah, it is surreal. It's surreal. And
good on you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's congratulations to you, because it started from the garage.
It did. A
lot of successful stories start from garages.
I know, they do.
Amazon, I heard say, or Apple, they're all similar.
Yeah. I don't know if that's our trajectory. They've done
not that large.
They've done really well for themselves. Yeah. And I think there's something in that journey for us and the way we started that kind of lives on in what we're doing now. It fuels us. It keeps us humble as well. Like if you're out there thinking that, and I'm a massive fan of like run your own race. There's only so much energy, especially if you're growing or scaling a business. If you're too focused outwards on like, who are my competitors at the moment, or what's happening, or am I keeping up, then you're actually taking your focus off your customers. And
your unique product, like even as a service. I remember reading a lot about this, or maybe it was in a podcast, and I did discuss it with my business mentor. You know, how much do you focus on what everybody else is doing? It's not in my nature. I'm a bit like in my own lane, build my own empire kind of person. Not that I want it to be any bigger than what it is right now. I'm really content.
I'm going to check back with you.
Yeah, touch wood. I'm happy, everybody. But it is that perfect example of everyone sort of says, oh, make sure you're checking in with your competitors, make sure you know what they're all doing. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm happy to follow them.
Yeah.
And I'll be inspired by some things that they're producing. But a lot of the time, we're different anyway. Yeah. Like what I offer and what you offer is different.
Absolutely.
To everybody else. So why don't we just keep doing what we're doing?
And there's so much room.
I'm not fazed with what they're up to. There'll be similarities. I think we all are mature enough to know that.
Absolutely.
But I'm not competing. No. I would love that person to get the job if they're right fit for the job.
Absolutely.
I'll get the ones that I'm right fit for. And that's having that like inner confidence, I guess, just knowing that you'll be the round peg in the round hole when it's right.
Absolutely.
You know, if you constantly square peg round hole, you're just squeezing yourself into everything, and it's like forcing, and that nature never really works.
I think
that approach doesn't work.
Fear-driven. If it's fear-driven, you are...
Or scarcity-driven.
Yeah, you're going to... if you're thinking, I don't know where my next sale is coming from, therefore...
where anything's going to land.
Therefore I'm like going to change what I do and what I believe in.
It's desperate energy as well.
It is, and it'll take you down the wrong path.
So I guess, you know, when I was mentioning around, you know, the colour range and the inspiration around that, if I go online and I select what I like from your existing range, is there any opportunity to create custom?
Great question.
Yeah.
Definitely, there definitely is. It's not something we advertise, and it's something that we do on volume for our A&D clients.
Larger scale
stuff. So we've done some stunning projects, custom shapes. Some of them we've even had like an inset kind of logo insignia on them, custom colours. When you're doing a large project like a large hotel and you're looking for a point of difference, and you've got a really unique colour scheme, and you've got, you know, maybe quite a small space that you're trying to deal with, and you need something that's just a perfect fit for that, I think that's where we can really step in and go from like design to quoting like instantly, like get them information back really fast to see whether it works for them. And if it's something they want to go ahead with, like I still do all the mold making by hand, and we can turn something around like fast in the scheme of things. So we can have our clients come to us and say, look, I need 20 of these, 80, 100, and this is how we're going to call them up.
This is sort of the model we want.
Yeah.
And do you like that creativity? Like, would you say, oh, can we just tweak it and make it, trust me, it'll look better if we do this? Like, do you do any of that? Or is
Definitely.
That,
we do a little bit, and it's a tricky one because you have to be very careful because they've come to you with this vision.
So don't overstep.
So
I'm so collaborative. I'm like, let's do it together. But yes, I get what you mean.
From a technical perspective, sometimes there's actually you need a slightly bigger wall thickness here. So generally, if it might be in conjunction with some technical parameters, there might be some room for a bit of a design change. But I can't say, like to date, no one's come to us with something we couldn't produce.
Easy.
And
gosh, that's like a cool challenge to have, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. And I think for me, like I've realised my favourite place in the business is doing that. It's like hands-on. Cool. It's creating those masters.
And it keeps you creatively involved.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's so cool. Good on you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to wrap up with one final question. What's the one thing you think everyone should try at least once, but most people haven't?
All right. Well, we've got to keep this radio friendly.
Keep it, G-rated. Please, Chris.
No, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind, skydiving. Go and jump out of a plane.
I love this so much.
you have to.
When did you do this?
It was about 10 years ago for me, and I was terrified. Not a huge fan of heights. I have to say the scariest part for me was the plane ride up. You're like 100 meters up and you're like, well, if the plane goes now, like there's not enough time to jump out. Eventually I'm like, we're high enough that...
Isn't it tens of thousands?
It is before you jump.
Or like 9,000.
But in between getting up high enough, I was so nervous and I was right at the back. And it was like the first jump, so tandem jump. So I've got these big dudes strapped to my back and there was no way he was not pushing me out of this plane. And once I got out, the most euphoric feeling, like everything melts away and you can just it's just a different perspective looking down on the earth. And moments like that for me, usually nature, even to the ocean, like it reframes. At the start of the day, you thought you had these problems, but they're not problems. They're these tiny little things. So that experience, absolutely transformative.
Wow.
So you go and do it. Have you jumped?
I've done it.
You have?
Yeah. I actually got paid to do it because they needed a blonde talent.
How do I sign up?
This is like 4 years ago. And it was a friend of mine. She does the photography for Skydive Australia.
Yeah.
And she said, look, we need a talent for the story we're doing. And the story was, for my story, it was starting a business during COVID. But they wanted a certain look. And she's like, just tell your story and you look the part. I'm like, okay, what have I got to do? And she's like, just skydive. Yeah. I was like, sure, okay. And I got paid to do it.
And that was your first job?
First time.
Wow.
So it was a production. Yeah. And it's so interesting when you were saying the plane thing, because I'm like, that was the same as me. I was like, sweet, up until it was like a 3-day production, and the middle day was the one where we went up. And it was crazy because I was fine until I wasn't. And there's a video of me in the plane and I'm white. Like I'm talking, and I had no makeup on because they wanted the natural look. So I'm like extra white. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, why did I sign up to this? And I went last, so I had to watch everybody drop out of the plane. Yeah. And then the camera guy, the videographer, his battery died. So they were like, all right, we're just going to have to do a couple of loops up here and waiting for him to change his battery. And I'm like, already.
The nerves.
So we're gonna go soon, right? Like it was getting to that point. I'm like, sure, why have I signed up to this? Anyway, and finally did it. But I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think also like falling out. But I shouldn't say falling out, it's strategic. But that drop, but then when you get into what's the hang glide thing?
What? The shoots up.
The shoots up, the hang glide. Yeah. I don't even have the lingo.
I definitely haven't got the terminology. Yeah.
So the chute goes, and for me it was just sailing down to earth, just seeing. It was up at Caves Beach in Newcastle, and it was a perfect day, and it was just like, I got to the ground, I burst into tears. So they got all of that on film. Because I was just so overwhelmed. And then they're like, how was it? And I'm like, I just want to go again. Because it's that euphoric feeling. That is the perfect word for it. It really is. It's so wild. Oh, I love that experience.
What a great story.
So good. There you go. We can share a story. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honoured to be here and absolutely loving your work too.
Thank you.
Like I've been listening to all the episodes and so relatable. Like especially as a maker, like connecting with the people that you've been talking to, listening to their journey, and for me, it's been so vulnerable, and like I've just found that your guests are so easy to connect with, and I just want to thank you for having us here because
well, you're a big part of it. So thank you for being on Behind the Design. And how can people connect with you before we wrap up?
I would say definitely head to our website and our Instagram. That's got a full list of all our stockers. So if you're wanting to go in store, obviously our product's very tactile. If you're wanting to see something in the flesh, you can check out our stockers online and check out our whole product range. So we keep that updated, so you'll always have the most accurate list of
recent
of partners that
updated recent.
So reach out. We're always here to help.
Love that. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Behind the Design. We've created this podcast to bring people together, inspire new ideas, and foster a deeper understanding of what goes on behind the design. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with someone who might find it valuable. Until next time, keep creating and stay inspired.